as I promised, females and snakes. Snakes are very often, most often, associated with goddesses, which is really quite interesting because, as Freud theorized, and which I agree, they are quite phallic, which seems like they would be more associated with males. So why the association with females? Well, I'm not going to tell you because I want you to figure it out for yourself, or at least your own theory. And if you come up with a theory that other mythologists have come up with, then wow, you're really coming along. But you see this, and I had pictures of the snake goddesses from Crete holding these snakes in their hands. That is kind of akin to modern sects of Christianity here in the United States who handle snakes, but only in the sense that they are handling the snakes. And I don't even know if the snakes that the Cretan statuettes are holding are even poisonous. You see Athena, who has a snake kind of hiding behind her shield. Now, of course, the other animal that is associated with Athena is the owl, which symbolizes wisdom. So what does the snake represent? And then you have poor Medusa, who is raped by Poseidon in the temple of Athena. And then he goes scot-free. But what happens to poor Medusa, who was originally a priestess of Athena and a very beautiful woman? What happens to her? She gets turned into the Gorgon along with her two sisters, and her hair is transformed into a mass of writhing snakes. Why the snakes? Why not wolf's feet, as I asked in the PowerPoint? Why is that so closely associated with snakes? And you have other Greek myths, the myth of Tiresias, who saw snakes mating, and that was forbidden for mortals to see. And so the gods turned him into a woman, and then he saw it again, and they turned him back into a man, and then they blinded him, so never again would he see that. Snakes are very often associated with wisdom, and this is one of the reasons why they were as sacred. The python would have been sacred, and why Tiresias should not have witnessed the snakes coupling. Why are snakes associated with wisdom? Why are they associated with Athena? Oh, I'm going to say this part of it. Because snakes live a long time. And how do you gather wisdom? By living a long time and having experiences. Snakes are also associated with rebirth. And I ask you this question, so I'm going to give you the answer and see if you watch this video. They're associated with regeneration and rebirth because what do they do every year? Sometimes several times a year. They shed their skins. They appear to be dead. And then they shed their skin and they come out looking more beautiful than ever, brightly colored, and they just keep going on and on. Now, the idea of the monster is not so much with the snakes. It's not so much the snake you see out in your garden, but that larger than life image of what humans painted of snakes. Because a snake, even though in the myths do have this sense of right and wrong, the serpent knows what it's doing in the Garden of Eden. Apap knows what he's doing when he's fighting Ra, but real snakes don't. So the mythic snake fits Campbell's definition of the monster. It goes against the ethics. It goes against order. It creates chaos and it creates fear. And this is also shown in the extensions of snakes that we also see, including dragons. Now, dragons are very interesting creatures. And dragons in different cultures represent and symbolize different things. In China, they are seen as being very wise. In Celtic lore, seen as being very wise. But in other myths, they are seen as being, eating the virgins and ravaging towns. And there is a Christian myth about St. George and the dragon, wherein he kills the dragon, and it represents Satan. Now, the idea of dragons probably came about because in ancient times, dinosaur bones have always been laying around, but they didn't know about dinosaurs. So what were these bones? Why, they were dragon bones, of course. Dragons are the marriage of elements. The ancients believed that the universe was composed of 4 elements: earth, air, wind, and fire. And when you take air and fire, you have the dragon. And it also incorporates wind because it flies. I guess it doesn't really incorporate water because I've thought about that before. So it incorporates more 3, but especially wind and especially earth and especially snakes and birds. So it marriages different aspects, opposites. It takes them and it merges them. And the idea of the dragon we also see in Mesoamerican and South American myth in that the form of Quetzalcoatl, the plumed or feathered serpent. That is a type of dragon. And so when you have these dragons combining these different elements, you have a different creature altogether. And it is superior to either the snake or the bird alone. So dragons certainly fit into this aspect of the snake. And again, in the Hebrew scriptures, you have that of the Leviathan. You have snake images throughout many, many, many mythos. And my question to you then is a snake a monster? Now, I've talked about how the mythic aspects, but how do you go from the snake to the monster? How does that evolve? And what is the evolution? And when you think about modern depictions of mythic snakes, what has been that evolution from Apep and Tiamat and the python at Delphi and the snake in the Garden of Eden and all of those other snakes? How are they represented in modern media? And that's your task. You tell me.